Well, I first do need to just brag on you both. If you're
What?
like, want to just grab a first class ticket to Compliment City, because I just am, from the moment I saw, because I knew that Gina was like, I'm working on this secret project, all these things. And from the moment that you guys did your launch, yeah, my whole body is like getting tingles. I was like,
Mm.
first of all, how do we not have this yet? Right? It was one of those things where it was like, wait a minute. And then also just like from the art, and I felt like my whole body again, like just the inclusion of it. And I felt like it was a very like spiritual, holistic, like that kind of take, but it was also like a little edgy. Like it felt like a little like Lilith Fair, like a little bit of kind of, right? Like there was a little bit of that to it. Like I just felt like I need to like listen to it with like Doc Martens on.
Oh my God.
And so I don't know if any of this is tracking for you, but
We may have made it with Doc Martens on. No, I'm kidding. But definitely I saved up my allowance to buy Doc Martens. So I was clearly in that vein. You were tapping into it.
oh yeah, I just the I think the raw expression of it was so cool, but also obviously you both have extensive backgrounds in, you know, like marketing and design, and like, so it was this beautiful marriage of skill and creativity with this like very like raw offering. So I'm just so grateful. I think last time I saw you said there's up to like 15,000 views, and which is just, I would say like amazing, but it's like, well, duh, of course. You created this thing that incorporates so many different voices as well. Like
Yeah.
that's so much the strength of the project. What if I just go on for the next hour? I don't ask you anything. I just
Everyone everywhere is like,
We use
I'm
this intro for volume 2. We're like,
yeah,
now cat 2.
yeah. I'm like, just tell you over and over again. But so yeah, I just wanted to share all of that. That's why
thank
I
you.
like,
Thank you so much.
of course, like when I get excited about something. And so as soon as it came out, like my instinct was to call you, Jeana, and be like, I have to have you guys on the podcast. And I was like, okay, relax, like let them like launch this, like play it cool to force. And then you can come in and be like, I got to talk to you guys about this. So I would just love to hear from you both about a little bit more, just so that the listener knows of like kind of the structure of it. You can kind of give us like the quick, quick and dirty. And then, yeah, I'm really interested just to hear about the process of it, how you both kind of came to doing this together. And then as we work our way through the conversation, naturally, I'm also just really attracted to what it's also felt like of now birthing this project and the response, and has that changed? Like, I know, for instance, if I get up on stage and I'm like, here's where I think the laughs are in these jokes, but then the audience is really going to let me know. And I'm like, oh, I'm seeing it through their eyes. So kind of how it shifted this baby for you.
Right. Jeana, you want to talk about why we chose to lay it out the way we did? Because Jeana kind of like gathered this approach of how we were going to like do a slow drip, where Gina's words, because I'm like let's like, da, 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 da. And Jeana was like, this is a slow drip. And it was like a mantra. And it was from Jeana. And she would just keep like repeating, this is a slow drip. This is a slow drip. So I feel like that's her bag to like talk about that, because that was a game changer for us.
Well, I definitely learned that, because I'm usually like, I'll like draft something up and I'll be like, okay, I can't wait for anyone. I'll send it to Amy and I'm like, tell me what you think, or I'll send it to a friend, and then they take too long to respond. Not Amy. Amy's very good at responding. But then I'm like, and then they'll respond with their notes. I'm like, sorry, I already sent it out. And they're like, wait, what? So usually that's kind of my MO. But I mean, it's so funny to like have it already out in the world and then reflecting on where we began with it. And I think one thing that Amy and I really wanted to do was to create community, and we wanted to hear from other mothers. And we felt like there is this real isolation in motherhood right now, even though you can access people on Instagram and you can go to these spaces where you meet other moms, but there's still some disconnect in like, why aren't we all getting together and like helping each other raise our children? It's like you still have to find that nanny or that babysitter. There's still that outsourcing where we so there was that initial feeling of like angst, right? The doc Martin angst. I did not buy them, so I'm already having a problem saying it. But I feel like we wanted to do something in person with mothers and children. And then Amy's in Florida. She was pregnant at the time. And then I was like, I have a 1-year-old that just feels insurmountable. So then we're like, let's do a Zoom room. We're going to do like a day of a Zoom. And then we're like, what? Like, that's not possible. Do you know any moms that can sit on Zoom all day? Like, that's crazy. So then it just kind of evolved. Amy was like, why don't we make like a series and it's audio collection? Because that's something that's a medium where you can access at any time. Like you're cleaning your house, you're nursing your baby, you're doing pickups and drop-offs. So we felt like that was it. You could be mobile, you could be attentive to your life outside of your phone, more or less. So then it just evolved into like, I don't know. It was like we have all these cool sound bites. Amy has these like amazing journal entries that evolve and then that turned into reels that then I was like, let's do like 6 months to invincibility. Like I want to hear Amy talk about it and let's add a cool beat to it. Like so it just kind of and then I had this video of my midwife pouring blood into the snow, which looked very Fargo-esque, and we cut out a lot of the like the sound effects because it did sound a bit my brother and I were working on it. He's like, I gotta cut that part out. Like, I don't know about this part. Cause you just hear like the whatever into the snow. But all of these things it just started to create like the palette of this audio collection. And it felt like it was beyond podcasting. And then we were like, oh, it's an audio magazine. It's an album. It's all these things and they're different time codes and the length of it. Like you can get like a little 3 minutes of this, or you can really sit down with 45 minutes or a 2-part series. And anyway, so that's kind of just how it evolved. And it really became like Amy and I just doing voice notes back and forth for months and then scheduling interviews with people we really wanted to talk to. And some people I didn't even know. I didn't know their work. Like I know of Nam Satya, but I didn't know the extent of the work that she does with mothers around relationships. And I've listened to that interview so many times. And I share it with people, especially when I talk to friends who are like, oh, my husband had the kids for the weekend. And like, he was tapped out by the time I got home. And like, and I was doing my career life and I felt like I had to like see where he was at, but also recognize like I do all this all the time and I have a career. So it's like one of those things where I was like, hey, listen to this interview because it's like it's just shifting perspective and I feel like I listen to it all the time and I love it. And I get so much out of it that literally it's like I have to be reminded because I can go into, when you're tired and you're tapped out and you're like, I want to make this all work. You need those reminders and you don't need to listen to a 3-hour podcast to get it. And that's
Well said. Yeah. That's well said. You don't need to listen to a 3-hour podcast. And also what I was going to say, going into like why we made it that way is that we felt like there's this automatic programming in mothers and women and people in relationships or seeking relationships that isn't actually very helpful. Like it's cloaked as helpful. Like, oh, here's all these, tips about how you're going to like be a strong person in your relationship when it's like, those are not actually helping relationships. And I feel like there's just so much of these mystery, esoteric teachings that can be passed off as like just some yoga and breath work when actually, when I've applied these practices to my relationships, my life gets better, my bank account gets bigger, my belly grows with a baby, I am deeply connected to my work. It's just, it comes out in so many different ways. And I think it's so amazing for women to get to see that like you can create that. You are bigger than all of that stuff. And constantly listening to like podcasts that talk about how hard it is to have it all, it's not helpful. It's just like there's no codes there that I can like infuse into my home and create Venus, like, and create, desire in my husband and like desire in my clients and like beauty and joy and fertility and people, like bring people to this planet. And I feel like women need more voices that have those codes And for me, that was like a big mission. It's like, give a mic to those people, because that's the stuff you want infusing in your home, literally vibrating in your home. Even when you're done watching, your husband comes home or tra-la, whatever, it's still floating in the air. Like there's still these beautiful teachings floating in the air. Everyone's breathing in. Like mom's different today. House looks different today. Same shit, same woman. It's a different frequency in the house because you've been shifted. So it's like, we wanted this bingeable thing. I wanted women to just like gobble it up, you know, like stand at the refrigerator door open, light on, get it, and you know, and like pass it on, like Jeana said. Yeah.
Yeah, I love all of that you guys said. And I think the two things that resonate the most with me was, one, as soon as you were saying, it was like, yeah, putting it out like an album. And that's yeah, again, my body is responding very significantly, where it felt cool. And I think that's the biggest thing, like, which ties into the second part, this is a lot of my mission in using my voice, which is like, I don't even want this to seem like advice. Like, I'm not giving advice. Even I sometimes struggle with saying like spiritual teacher. I like to say I'm a spiritual voice, because I'm like, I have things to teach, but it doesn't mean it's going to teach you. I don't know what your journey is. I don't know. And for a while I was like, is this a humility thing? Like, and I'm like, no, I don't mind being in a leadership role. I like those positions of being at the front. That's just kind of I enjoy that. But I think being very mindful of sharing. Mm-hmm. Sharing is where we're actually connecting. Mm-hmm. Because when we're talking at people, all these advice podcasts, all these like, like mommy, it's like, my biggest issue with all things like spirituality or wellness in general, we've overcomplicated all of these things. We've overcomplicated all of them, and it's making us more angry, more angsty. Like, if your rituals are now a thing on your to-do list, you're doing it wrong. We've already started. Like, if it's a thing where it's like, oh, I got to make time, I got to have this ritual and I got to have that one. It's like, well, the point is to breed more presence. The idea is to breed more living in an abundant space when things don't feel abundant. It's, kind of, Amy, what you're saying, allowing those things to be in the air and become a part of yourself, your routine, your family, your community, right? Mm-hmm. So that was the thing that I was the most attracted to about the project in general, which was like, oh, what an awesome way to package something to us in a way that feels reminiscent of things that we've seen or experienced. Again, like, right, by looking at the art, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm, like there's just all of this kind of energy around it, but in a way that it felt like, oh, these are women wanting to share and connect and offer their experiences in a way of allow it to be easy. Not meaning that, because motherhood is anything but easy, but allowing yourself to move with ease. Because when you talk about having a career and doing it all, and then you're with the kids all day, and it's like, anytime I start to look at it as something that has to be done is when I get in my own way. And when I'm like, how cool that I got to go and record a podcast and learn and share and speak and commune with other wonderful women. Yeah. And then I get to go out the store and I get to hold my babies. Like, what a beautiful way that I have set up my life. It doesn't mean that every day I'm like, yes, more things, like, I'm human. But yeah, I'll throw the ball back to you guys. But that was definitely the thing that I was the most attracted about. And I think you really did such a beautiful job of packaging that, which is like, what are these conversations that we all need to hear? Yeah. Not learn from, not implement, but just to hear and share, because that's sacred to me, sisterhood and motherhood, which is, it's the circle of sharing.
Yeah, right. And I will say, like, Jeana and I are both sevens. So I know if anyone like studies numerology, like Jeana and I, like, our natural gift is beautifying things, is like making things richer, like cheering for your friends. Like, we would be the first to compliment somebody versus wait for the compliment. Not because we don't want the compliment or need the compliment, but it's like, it's just this like thing in you. You're like, that girl has something. She's so cool. Let's talk to her. And that's literally what our text messages look like. Another thing I was saying, like, Jeana was really good about keeping us, like my background, Jeana's background also, like, is very corporate, very like talk, things are seen by the masses. And so, there's a level of how many eyes see that stuff. It's a deep practice to like decondition from all of that perfectionism. Like one of the deepest like things I've had to like kind of release is like, I worked at Ralph Lauren, and every day you got critiqued in the elevator by how you dressed. Was it mansion appropriate? If you were set in front of Ralph Lauren, Mr. Lauren that day, like would it be appropriate? And like Mr. Lauren's biggest quote was always, the devil's in the details. It was a deeply ingrained thing. I'm not a perfect person. I'm sure that my chart says that I'm not on time. I'm not very organized. I'm not all these things. But what I think Jeana was so good at doing is she was saying, we're going to use what's in front of us, right? Everyone has their phone. Mothers voice note all the time, or at least I do, right? We voice note all the time. We're just going to piece it together. We're going to take it slow. We're going to endure. We're going to just stay with it. We're not going to give up when it can't be an in-person event, or when we don't like the idea of a Zoom because it doesn't even appeal to us. Like, we're just going to keep enduring. There's something here calling that we also wanted. And so we're just going to keep one by one answering it, one text message at a time. And I think like for me, if I was speaking to a creator, which is a mother, whatever you're doing, like the endurance is really the hardest part. It's just being patient and staying with it and keep listening to the calling. Like, what now? How now? And then the cool factor comes because it's like you made something you're proud of. You did it. You made it. And that, to me, that's the success. There's like the teaching that like everything should be done with excellence. To me, excellence is completion. If I complete it, this is excellence. So it's like, that was like the best, to just be like, we did it, we packaged it, we created the space, we're going to show up every day while we release it on Substack. We're going to like market the shit out of it until you're like so tired of hearing it and seeing it in our Instagram and in our newsletters. We're really proud of it. And these women deserve a platform, and these women deserve to be cheered on. And we've been inspired, and we feel confident you will also,
Go ahead, Jeana.
I also want to say that I think going back to that, creating that platform for all these women who we admire, who inspire us. We were like, oh my God. I mean, I can't believe I got Ariana Rines to do a poem, and it's one of those pieces where you're like, where are we going to fit this in? And going to Substack, which was a final decision. We were just going to release it all at once.
Yeah.
But going to Substack, it really, it was another part of the medium that helped us steer the ship a little bit and write about either the behind the scenes, the process, why we reached out to these people. Because I think at the end of the day, we all come from the mother. And we are daughters, we are sons, we are children, from the womb. However, I mean, I know we live in a very modern society, so yeah. But I think what came out of Amy and I, because everything is so polarizing, especially in the world of motherhood. You can like read a post about formula, and then you look in the comments and there's a huge argument happening, which I honestly get off on reading. It's like, it's my low vibration. I'll be like, oh, you got to check the comments on this. But, I just think for Amy and I, it's like we really wanted to create a place where people can just kind of tune in. And I think you can feel the neutrality in us as creators, that then you can listen to the radical voice of my midwife, who views birth in a way that is very mystical and out there. And she has her opinions, and she very boldly states them on medical industrial complex. But I think at the end of the day, you take what you want and you leave the rest. And I don't, not saying like going back to the commercialism, making it something that we made it for the whole world and every mother is going to relate to this. But I think that there's like the cool factor of
Right.
tuning in and being like, oh yeah, moms they're not just like talking about diapers and like powder, and it's not just like super sweet all the time.
So boring.
Yeah. Or like, even I love when Amy's like, the gentle parenting thing is like a total eye roll. And I think every person that we spoke to, it's all about coming back to how can you authentically just be yourself as a parent and
Right.
not share it off of this inundation of this holistic psychologist said this on Instagram, and I need to reformulate my questions. Instead of asking my child, how is your day today? Here's 4 other questions you could ask them. And you find yourself being like, wow, I gotta make a note. I gotta make a note because I'm so basic. And I just asked them how their day was. But like, I think you have to laugh at this stuff. And I think
I
it's,
hope you're laughing.
I
Yeah,
hope,
I hope moms are laughing. I'm sure our audience is laughing. I love what Nam Satya said. My kid knows when I'm being weird. Like
yeah,
my kid knows. And I remember when she said that, I was like, that's my kid too. Like I remember thinking in my head, like Gaia does too. She knows when I have like a weird voice or something. Or I'm like, how did that make you feel? Who the hell talks like that?
Yeah.
Like it just, I don't know. It's just sometimes kind of a little bit strange. And you like will kind of catch yourself in the middle of like, wait, is that my voice? That sounded weird even to me. Like, you kind of like catch yourself.
Well, and
yeah,
I think that to me, that's the beauty of sharing versus fact. Because that's a thing I struggle with a lot, right? Like I'm always helping, like a lot of what I feel called to do is help people uncover their truth.
Right.
And a lot of people have issue with that because it's like, well, it's spirituality or it's this, there's only one truth or this. And I'm like, sure, for you. But at the end of the day, I don't care who you're talking to, how many astro planes you've been to, or if you've seen Jesus Christ. We're all here on the same level. So you actually don't know. In fact, you don't know. And I feel that way about everything where it's like, to me, the most important thing about being a mother is my mental health okay? Am I in a position where I can be the matriarch of my family today and move with ease? So if that means that breastfeeding has gotten too overwhelming and for whatever reason, and then I have guilty feelings about that or this or that, or like, what always worked for us was like bottle feeding and breastfeeding because I was getting too touched out. It was too much for me, but I love that bonding time with my babies. And I love that, and I'm also just, our life in general is, I would say is like very like half holistic and a lot of same way of like I'm spirituality and I'm a comedian, right? I very much operate in 2 different worlds and I find that harmony for myself. And that is what our family is. And so that's how I felt like having that bonding time with mom, that connection, and then also the ability that like family's here and they can give a bottle and they can have that sense of connection and nurture because family is also a huge part of growth. I'll get on a whole other conversation, but like growth for me and motherhood and the ability to know I don't have to do it all. And that doesn't make me any less connected from my children to go, hey, I'd really love an hour to be able to,
Shower.
yeah, right. I mean, whatever it
Shave
is.
my legs. Last night I was like, I just need to shave my legs. And if it means the baby cries, that's okay. Don't come in the room.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's so much of it too, right? Obviously I'm a big proponent of like, their nervous systems are forming and our subconscious and yes, to all of these things. But 1 hour, 30 minutes of the baby crying so mama can get her legs shaved.
But
It's going to be okay.
But you know what? The baby cried for like 2 minutes and then he figured it out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think like you said, going on a tangent, but it's like you said, like not teaching sharing. And it's like, it's hard for me even to say, I want to shave my legs. Like, what does it really matter? I don't know, but to me it does. I'm just that girl. I just need that, I wanted to like do some dry brushing, like I just wanted to like to be in there and have a little moment. And it's like, I have to also remember that my husband is an extension of my aura, or at least I believe he is. I do. I believe I chose a partner that is a beautiful extension of my aura. And so when I give him that space to hold the aura and hold the family and physically hold the baby, it's going to be okay. Like my husband's got it. He's got me. He's got the baby, And so it's like kind of sometimes, and that's why that Nam Satya interview stings a little, because sometimes it's just like, you know what, girl, you got to get out of your way. You got to stop pretending like you're X, Y, and Z and your husband's causing that problem or society's causing that problem. You got to get out of your way. You got to release a few things. So it's like, I think going back to like why the interviews and everything felt so cool is like, we had like a whole cascade of people. Like there's a whole different sector of all kinds of stuff that I didn't necessarily like, wow, I'd never heard that before. I don't know that that's mine, right? Jeana and I had conversations where I'm like, I don't resonate so deeply with this, but that's okay. It's okay. It doesn't need to be like an echo chamber of like Amy Keller's philosophies on life. That's absurd, And the truth is, in like speaking of like in reflection, like now that it's out there, one of the biggest things Jeana and I were talking about is like how you evolve. you would have maybe asked a different question, given a different response. You would have like done something a little bit different. And here you are out in front of people as if that's your last stance. This interview is the last end all be all opinion of Amy Keller. That's absurd. If you're listening to this, if you're interested in highly elevated spiritual, mystical, esoteric teachings, a different way at approaching life, you're going to evolve quite quickly. Who you were last week, you're like cringy about her a touch, or something she said, you're kind of like, oh, I don't really feel good about that anymore, you know? And so it's like things are out there that like maybe I wouldn't say or do or agree, whatever. And it's okay. And I don't have to identify it was this spot and I just wanted to give you a quick tweet and let you know I don't believe that anymore. No, I'm like I'm moving on to the next thing. We're going into volume 2 and it's okay.
Well, and that I love that you share that, and that really goes into when you were talking about the Ralph Lauren, and like I feel that way through Hollywood. I've been talking a lot about this, where I was like, where does perfection get in your way? And like it's a lie, it's a bullshit lie, because what it does is if you make people question themselves, then they'll do whatever they need to do for you, right? It is a tact. Am I saying that Ralph Lauren was like this mastermind? That's not what I'm saying, but you know, it'll come for me, Ralph. But the point being, where I think that we see that all the time. And I was saying that with this podcast where I'm like, with my producer, and I'm like, well, I don't know, like the tech wasn't working or this, or I had to reschedule. And I tie all of that to my power and my worth. And I'm like, oh, these people are going to walk away and think I'm an idiot and this and that. And it's like, but Rachel today doesn't think that. That's old pain body stuff. That's old conditioning of you get one shot in this room, kid, you know? And I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to be in rooms like that anymore. If I can't show up, like that's the most beautiful thing to me when you talk about motherhood, where it's like, to me, the best thing about it is it's a perpetual teacher. And when I allow my role in that to be like, oh, I don't have to have all of the answers. And if I wanted to nurse and be in bed all day yesterday and then today that doesn't feel good, that's okay. You know, like, yes, there's something to like complete chaotic energy, but there's another thing to like honoring where you're at. And we have this idea that like stability or routine, and it's like, no, it's about harmony for me. And every day is going to be different. And we have all of these cycles and all these outside things. And again, if you talk about these like mystical teachings, to me, that's the most powerful thing of like, are you truly listening to where you are right now? Because if you're not, you can tell me every mystical teaching that you've ever thought of or whatever. It's like, are you connecting to yourself now? Because Amy, I loved when you said, you're like, my daughter knows if I'm being weird, you know, look me in the face and go, what did you just ask me? You know? And so I think it is that of like, it is that because nobody reads bullshit better than a toddler. You know what I mean?
So
Where
true.
like,
so true, you know? And like the thing for me, and I've told Jeana this before, my number one philosophy on parenting, me personally, is just to tell the truth. Age appropriate, but tell the truth, because that's just who I am. Like that may not be another person's thing, but that's how Amy Keller is. So sometimes in the middle of it, when she would be 3 and something would get wacky and she'd start acting weird, I would say, you know what? I feel overwhelmed. I don't really know how to handle this situation right now. So I don't know what to say. I'm going to just take a minute here to gather myself. I would literally tell my 3-year-old, I don't know how to tolerate your tantrum, essentially. I'm freaking out inside also. I wouldn't say like, I can't tolerate your energy, because like, you know, who wants to hear that? That sucks, right? But I'd be like, I feel overwhelmed right now. I am not really sure what to do or what to say. I just need to take a breath. And that'd be like before bedtime, trying to get to something on time, like, you know, and I've just always been honest. And it goes to everything, like to TVs, to screens, to dyes in the food. You know, my kid knows it all, you know, and they know it all because that's just who these kids are right now, you know, which is why they can tell when you're being weird and wacky. Something's not right with mom, you know? But it's like, my thing has always just been to just tell the truth as it is right now, right? Like, guy is going to tell me in 10 years, like, you did this thing that was poisonous to me. And I'm going to be like, whoa, I did, you know? But it's like, I'm just doing what I know right now. And I'm just being honest about what I know and what I don't know right now, you know?
I think that's great, because I feel like she's going to be able to express her I don't knows.
Oh,
and
she
not
does.
have it feel yeah. I don't recall those. My memories are my parents sort of hiding their feelings and not being able, when they can't deal with something, one of them's like in the other room. And
Yes.
why? But you do, but like there's no expressing of that. So, and you see how that trickles out in your relationships as you get older too. I have to reprogram the way that I can just shut down and not express myself. And then I'm like, well, now I have a kid and I can't shut down in front of a 18-month-old, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And to me, it's still that it's that connection point. It is that sense of power, that it's powerful to say, I am overwhelmed. I mean, a lot of times I'll tell Jonah is my almost 2.5-year-old, and I'll tell him mommy's getting mad. Mommy's getting mad. Not at Jonah, but mommy's getting mad.
Yeah.
Because, I just, I think it's like, whatever. I like when you talk about age appropriate, I'm always like, okay, if this is like the higher thing, like how do we drop it down into their level?
Right.
But in a way we're like, yeah, I'm still telling the truth, because I think that's so much of that thing, right? Like when we grow up and it's like, oh, I realized that like my parents were, just trying the best they could the whole time. And you have to reframe that. It's like, well, why
Totally.
can't we just like grow together? Obviously, yes, age appropriate, like Amy said, and like it's our job to lead them, protect them, provide for them in those things. But I just don't know why perfection or a lack of vulnerability is seen as powerful. I think the more that I really deconstruct that, I'm like, this is hilarious that anybody thinks that not expressing is the powerful choice. I mean, hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And because there's nothing more powerful than somebody being able to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And because that groundedness that happens, or even that groundedness of, oh, that's so cool that like, that's what works in your house. That's interesting. Like, this is what we do. And it not being a competitive thing. It's not being like a gossipy thing, but the recognition, again, that goes back to truth, which is like, isn't that interesting that like, that's what works like for you guys? And I think that also takes that, that pressure off of like, I've got to be the perfect mom, and then you just become a crazy person.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, it's funny because the day that Rahel's interview came out, so Rahel she's a former costume designer. I mean, I remember she came to Isaiah's first birthday and she's like, oh yeah, I worked with like Michelle Gondry. And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, you're that costume designer? You know what I mean? Like, I just love Michelle Gondry. So anyway, she basically left her whole career and life behind and decided for her family that she's going to live in Vermont. She's going to make homeschooling work. She doesn't use screens. Like it's all like, she's like, no, they're in nature. This is what I think is best for my children. And the day that came out, Isaiah was not feeling well. And I was like, you know what? We're going to watch Thomas and I'm going to listen to George Carlin do his little voiceovers because they're really cute and all the trains are crossed with each other and that's fine. And like, and I think for me, it was like, I want to like overshare that because I can sit in the room and listen to how someone does it and be like, wow, that is just so cool. I love that. I love that for your family. Your kids are great. And then I can turn on the television for my kid because he's not feeling well. And now like everyone in the house is tapped out and it's just a reality for that moment. And I can't obsess over it because that's going to be the thing that everybody feels over, the 8 minutes of Thomas on television. And I feel like that's something that I've had to unlearn because, you have your expectations as a mother and then you're faced with like, okay, I need to post this thing on my phone. I need 10 minutes by myself, but I also have a sick child who wants to be near me 24/7. So I think that those are what, it's at the end of the day, we want everyone to feel super confident in how they trust themselves, their partnerships, their children too. You don't want to hover over every experience. You want to create boundaries where they're safe and they have a wonderful culture in their life. Amy and I talk a lot about that with like we're really curating their life and their lifestyle and their culture because we want, you do obviously everyone wants their children to have a happy childhood. But I just think that that's what when I just reflect on all of these things and going back to what Amy said is like sometimes the interviews resonate and then other times it's like I'm doing it differently and I have the confidence and I know who I am as a mother and as a woman to say that's fine. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because when you talk about the thing that I really one of the things I feel like it's so easy for me to be like, oh, toxic mommy culture. But I do want to offer one thing, which is like there are a lot of beautiful voices, even like the mothership included, and everyone's individual voices from that project, which is like I love so much of being able to learn what are the things that everybody else is doing, because I think the way in which I've just chosen to live my life in the iteration I am now, which is like we're just fully following our intuition. Because for me, in my personal story, right, was like I was drinking for a long time, I was people pleasing, I was doing perfection in Hollywood, and I was so far removed from myself. And so where I am now is like I know as a kid the number one thing that I struggled with feeling was safe. My parents loved me and all those things, but I went back and forth between mom's house, dad's house. I was an only child, and I didn't have this sense of like, you're safe all of the time, no matter what and where you go. I'm sure my son is like, why do you keep telling me I'm safe all the time? I got it. Thank you so much.
I got it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm playing with my blocks. Okay, bug off. But I feel like like mantras are a big thing in our house. Because my son is we're like in OT right now and developing like a really strong nervous system for him. He's got some highly sensitive stuff, and I'm like, wonder where he gets that from. And so it's been beautiful to even be able to do those exercises and things with him, because it's put me back in my body, and having that point of connection with just like this little being is the most beautiful experience that I could ask for. And even that has required so much following of my intuition, because there's a lot of voices that are like, oh, well, you need to go to this thing or you need to do this thing. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with him. He's a sensitive kid. So I don't want to eliminate that. I want him to have the language to understand there's a lot of places in which you're going to go and they don't operate the way that we do at home. So I want to be able to give you life skills of both things. So if you go to someone else's house and you're noticing, different, different, what is your limit of different? If you no longer feel safe there, what can we do so that you can get back to a place where you feel safe? Because I think that's, again, where, just for me, of operating of, comedy, spirituality, or what I identify as like the way everybody else lives, the codes that everybody else lives by, right? Where I'm like, I don't know what kind of reality this is. Now, we don't have to create our reality there, right? We create our reality in a place of we being my family, of prosperity and abundance, community, that there's enough for everyone. And we can live every day if we choose to in a place of peace. And what a beautiful way. That doesn't mean everybody else lives their life that way. So really wanting our boys to have both, so that they can go out into the world and continue to permeate and offer what we've created here, what you guys were speaking to, of what are you creating and you're curating, which I love all of us as three little creator moms that we're like, we're curating our home space. And, but just the beauty of that, my whole body's electrified again. I just, again, I'm so grateful to you both for, again, swinging the sword in your hand, where you're like, okay, we're not gonna be able to do this. We're not gonna be able to do that. We're birthing babies, we're having babies, and in that place and being like, we're going to do it the same way we're doing everything else, which is commitment, going slow, checking in. And through that process, and going back, Amy, to what you said of, to me, it's excellent because it's completed. And to me, it's excellent because it's honest. And it's an honest representation of where you were at, where it's like, yeah, if you do volume 2, it's like, okay, maybe I'm going to show up differently. Or even like, I may respond differently to things that I wouldn't have before. Yeah. And what a beautiful opportunity to always be evolving.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the power of creativity. That's the power of the Ma frequency, right? Is the ultimate infinite, force of creation. And every single mother has that, whether you actually have a mother or not. Every woman, as Jaguar woman would say, that you have that. And I think that's something that's been like a practice of mine, because this is making me want to share this for some reason, but it's like something that's been a practice of mine since like 2019. And interesting, the timing that fell into my life is like, I am who I am no matter where I am. I am who I am no matter where I am. If I'm with the mom who like does all the things on the schedule and like tuck, 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 that's cool. I'm still Amy K. And I say the things that I say about my family and my choices with my own grace and my own honesty and my own lived experience. I've lived places, I've lived in other countries. I've, changed who I am in front of people. I've, done it in front of God, in front of man, whoever, right? I've made a lot of choices in my life. There are people who still follow my work that I'm sure are just along for the evolutionary ride, right? I'm an interesting show because I've been so different so quickly over such a fast arc. But that's my design. And who I will be when I turn 50, right? Like I thought about that so much when I turned 40. Like, wow, this is who I am at 40, and reflecting on who I was at 20 and who I was at 30, and like just so proud of myself that I allowed myself to just keep going, to just keep moving higher and bigger and bolder and take up more space because I liked the space I was taking up. I liked myself more because I gave myself permission to just be full out and who I am wherever I am. And it's interesting why I say that timing, because then it's like that just kept going. That gave me so much grace. And I know that it permeates off and it's part of my own aura and my own radiance. And when I look at my daughter and the things people say about her, it's in her aura, but it's like, I am who I am wherever I am. And that has absolutely nothing to do with you. That has absolutely nothing to do with the people around me. That's the experience that this incarnation has allowed me, is to be in that experience. And I feel like that's infused in this project. Like Isabel, I loved in Isabel's interview when she talks about how your children are like this living, breathing, like projection of your subconscious. I was like, damn, she got me. Like that was so spot on, and like when they're triggering you about something, or how she explained it in her practice, like I'm going to set up this space. We're all going to be doing, something right now, but mom's going to focus on this. And how she just like explained how that evolved over 40 days. I thought like, wow, I hope everyone who's listening really hears that part of the interview, because just that one thing could like open up a giant hall in someone's mind, in a mother's mind or a person's mind, of like how triggers your children, your spouse, whatever, when you're trying to get holy, like when you're trying to have a holy moment your whole life is holy, and I felt that as a mother, like instead of getting up at these auspicious hours and, and like, here comes my family right now, right up the stairs. It's like, I'm still me. The camera's on. This is, my daughter knows this is us. This is who we are, right? There's no like weird, oh, now I'm this person, now I'm not. That's very freeing and liberating. And I think it's like a gift to other people, when you have conversations and you just allow yourself to spill out into every area without changing your color based on who you're in front of or what you're talking about,
Yeah, and to speak on that, because when we launched the Mothership, there was a moment like a couple days after, and I don't know if you guys have felt this before, when you really put yourself out there all at once. And I was like, I felt like this open wound. Like I was like, I'm just gonna hide, and like, what was I thinking? And you start to backtrack all the decisions. And then I'm like, why did I send it to that mom? She's listening. Now, like they know something more about me. And it's just all of those things that you're like, oh, this is the feeling of evolving. This is the feeling of putting yourself out there and all the things that I want to do. And I think that there's a part of me where it comes very naturally. And then there's the other part of me that I'd be happy to just stay hiding behind the
Yeah.
scenes, So,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking sorry, I went into tech mode and I heard the static.
Oh, you
but
heard
it's
it
fine.
again here.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Sorry, I know
We're wrapping up.
Moms, we're doing
Hey,
our thing.
I am who I am, no matter where I am. Okay. If there's static in the background, you guys can handle it.
I went in full behind the scenes mode where I'm like the tech person.
I know. No big deal. But yeah, I love that share. First of all, Amy, that is exactly, you felt called to share that because I needed to hear that. That is the expression of, I'm going to be sharing on it. So I apologize. I'm going to be tagging you a lot on Instagram coming up, because I'm like, I can't share that without saying, here's who shared that with me and brought that to my awareness, because that's the like perfect, like truncated part of what I've been trying to express when I say like owning your power is owning it no matter what's happening, no matter who's in front of you. And that ties so perfectly into, hi, my friend.
Yeah,
How
he's
old
like,
are they?
he's only 2 months.
Oh,
Yeah.
How many times?
oh my
Oh, my husband
goodness.
said, "How many times did you mention me?" See what I'm saying? It's like,
Don't worry,
you
my
could say
friend.
hi. You could say hi.
Did you mention me or not?
Yeah, this
Hi.
is my husband. It's so funny when I'm on these interviews. I'm like, if these people just knew my husband is like so much more interesting than I am, and the things that I do, I'm like, my husband's so much more interesting than all of this.
That's so funny. We just do like an after, like a follow up to this one. I just interview both of your husbands. We're like,
Right.
okay, so
I'm gonna have a totally different story to tell you.
yeah, it's the men behind the mothership.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, totally. Mom.
I was going to say, oh yeah, and then going back to as we're evolving and stepping out, and I feel like those are two major lessons that I wouldn't call them lessons, but I think like experiences, things I'm experiencing right now, which is like I was sharing with my co-producer Caroline, and I was like, I feel like I'm in this new level of the video game, right? And I was like, I've opened up all these new doors of abundance. I'm realizing I'm the one who has the power. I'm in the driver's seat, but now I'm actually driving. And when you're doing that, you're going, oh, I didn't expect that thing. Ooh, that makes me feel cringe. Ooh. And yeah, it's exactly that, which is like, I am who I am no matter where I am. And with that is also like, it's okay to feel embarrassed. Like, I think it's okay to feel like you didn't make the mark. And I think I spent so long like in my own illness of not wanting anybody to know because I didn't even want to have to feel it, and being like, oh, I think like going back to that word of excellence and like always doing your best, right? Of like 4 agreements. I think part of it is like accepting that like that's also part of it. Like doing great work isn't just, oh, everybody loved it and the accolades and how, I mean, that's not to place that on you guys, but speaking for my own thing, right? You put something out there and it's like, well, with that also comes the hiccups, the cringe, the, oh, I hope they like it. Oh, it's so raw. It's so real.
Yeah.
And just doing it anyway.
I was going to speak to that about like it's a deconditioning if you're a woman who's working for yourself also, because like I come from a very high stress environment, the fashion and beauty industry in New York City. I was a fashion and beauty publicist for a very long time, and I would look at the women who were mothers, and like when they were at work, you could forget that they were a mom until they'd suddenly randomly mention their kid. Randomly, very few times they'd mention their kid, because this was also a time in history, which I think is less now. Although maybe if I went back to a corporate job in New York City, they'd be like, get a hold of yourself. It hasn't changed at all. But it's like you had to work like you weren't a mother, and you had to mother like you didn't work. And so it's like you have to kind of like extract yourself out of that and be like, that's not the game that I'm in anymore. And like this moment right now, I'm nursing my new son. What was I going to do? Say no to this interview? No, I wanted to say yes. I'm allowed to say yes, and like do and show up for that. And also do this right now. And that's okay. Not like I want to be in a boardroom, with like Mr. Lauren and be like, here's the strategy for the fall collection. And I got my baby here. But you get what I'm saying. Like, I'm just saying that like that kept me back a little bit in like 2019, 2020. My daughter was still small at that time, and it was harder for my family. I would have made some better decisions about when I scheduled live classes, when I launched projects, but I needed to do that to like get to the next thing. I needed to like have some arguments about how I made some bad choices with how I organized the dynamic of my family and my business in my house to get to the next thing. Would I do it the same way again? No, because I'm smarter now. I lived it. I like learned a few things, but it's like you got to just kind of like be a little bit, if you're not feeling a little bit cringe about the stuff that you're doing, you're not really out there putting it out there. You're not. Yeah, right?
That's the clip. That's the clip. Clip it. Put it online. Yeah. Amen. Amen.
Well, and I noticed with what we were doing, because I run my husband and my business together. I edit our podcast. I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and it goes back to what Emma Johnston said. It's like, these are things that like we find the moments to do these things because it's important for our own evolution, and it's also it's our legacy, and it gives us energy to then be more present in our lives. And I found that with especially creating this, I share everything with my husband, and I'm like, I don't want to share this with you. I want you to hear it at the end, because I'm in this like great creative little little chamber or bubble with Amy, and I want you to experience it because it's, and I'm not trying to be possessive about it, but it's like, this is mine, you know, like this is, and it's motherhood. It's a little, and of course my husband's like, I think you should have a Dad's on volume 2. And I think, and I was like, okay, of course. And of course, if I don't interview him, then, you know, the house isn't going to be feeling that great that day. But, you know, I think that there's like, it's like what gives you energy, and then doing those things that give you energy, and where you can, you know, treating it like birth, like your child is something that is just going to ripple out again. And I like the idea of secretly creating, because I find I've spent way too I spent a whole decade always telling people about my ideas. And it would be like within my friends. And I think that's maybe just part of your 20s, or that's just my own evolution. But it's like, I was kind of sick of hearing myself talk about these ideas. I'm like, I just want to do it and then move on with my life. And that's it.
Oh, I love all of that so much. Mostly that you're like, I'm gonna have to interview Remington. Just you guys know each other so well. But yeah, it's funny when you talk about like right when my Teddy, who's 6 months, was born, and I was doing a lot. My business was like really starting to where I was like, oh, I'm in a groove. I'm in it. And I felt this shame, the secondary shame of like, oh, but if I'm really a holistic mom, then like I would only be in bed with my baby. But I'm like, but what makes me feel energized to be a mom is to create. Because in the same way I created these boys, like that's just who I am. Like, sure, I labeled as like, oh, I'm a producer, I'm a comedian, or I'm a spiritual speaker, I'm an intuitive. Yes, there's all of these aspects of what I create. But ultimately, like Rachel is a creator. That's just what, that's what I do. And there is almost, now that I identify it, there's almost like a sickness when I'm not in process, right? That doesn't mean that we're always on, right? There's knowing ourselves and resting and things like that. But when I'm holding back on something, that's when I get irritable. I get disattached, I get frustrated. That's when things don't, like, starting back from the beginning of the conversation, where I was like, when I move through it with ease, I'm able to go back out that door and scoop up a baby and be excited and roll into the next thing, and allow this energy to kind of roll off and integrate, and what needs to integrate, the rest roll off, and then roll into the next thing. And that sense of presence, I'm so grateful for it. It took me a while to be able to identify that to people, because they were like, well, didn't you go on mat leave, or like, how do you do it all? And I understand everybody speaks about other people based off of like their own language and experience, because then it's my need to over explain. And I'm like, no, I'm still spending time with my babies. Like I'm not, and then I'm like, it's okay. Everybody doesn't know all of the ways that Rachel Rule Forrest lives her life. Like that's okay. Again, I am who I am, no matter where I am. So
I love that. Yeah. And it's like, why answer to other people's expectations of who you are? It's just, I think that's the other thing, as also a people pleaser in recovery. It's like, I notice how me fixating on how other people are viewing me has actually never allowed me to fully express who I am and put that into the world. And I think that that was another thing with the mothership, was like, I told Amy, I was like, I'm coming out as Jeana Donovan. Like all of the graphic design work that I've done, all of my IMDb is under my maiden name, and that's great. And I'm super proud of all those things. But it's like, I want to get pictures taken, and I want to put myself out there, and I'm going to rewrite my bio, and all those things that they're so little, but it's like, try writing your bio right now. It's really hard. You're expressing yourself. You want to capture where you're at. And I read a bio from like 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh God, I would never, ever put that in there now, So I think it's like going back to what Amy had said, like we're evolving and we're changing, and like, and you're catching that evolution because we're recording it, and maybe we're like secretly cringing about certain things, but we're moving on with our lives, and we're coming up with like, we're already like, all right, who do we want to talk to? What do we want to do? Like it's like riding that wave of creativity and expression, and like kind of, I love that you felt that it felt cool to you, because that for me, it's like, I feel, once again, I just feel like mothers like aren't cool. Like in culture, mothers are like, they're like beautiful and they're like in a field, and I want to be in a field and I want to be beautiful. But I also like, it's like, I want to incorporate all these other things, and things that inspire me musically, films, just level like a vision, or like more like a what my Pinterest looks like, to make it very clear. I want all of those to kind of come together and be embodied. And I think what is great about just the collaboration with Amy is that, and this was like, this one person had said there's such a levity to one of Amy's performances in the How to Become Invincible in 6 months. And I was like, oh, Amy just brings that. Like she brings that, like that levity, but she's real. Like you're not like, like maybe you can look at like her Instagram feed and be like, oh, she's like, she's got it together. She's got the long white dress and she's in the field with the children, and like, and she's killing it in like every avenue of her life. And she is, but she's also like, she's telling you how she's feeling. I was saying to Amy, I was like, you're like the breakout star of the Mothership, because seriously, and I'm happy I'm bringing this up here, because
I love that.
I
was like, can that just be the bio? Like, can that, instead of being like co-creator, can I just be the breakout star? And I want to say with that, because I wanted to share about Jeana. Like, Jeana is like the cool factor. It's just interesting working. Like, I've noticed that, and I'm in a 2-year personally, like for myself, if you know your numerology. So I'm in a 2-year, which is a year of collaboration and creativity. And when Jeana and Remington sent me my numerology for this year, they're like, you're gonna have a baby. And it's just interesting. But I had many babies. Like I birthed many projects, I had a physical baby, but it's just like Jeana is that cool factor. And what it was is like, I had all this. I mean, my Mercury's in Gemini, like my background's in communications, my degree's in journalism. Like I'm a communicator. That's my sweet spot. And so I had all this writing, all these like poetry, and Gina was like, what if we took this and this? And we basically just mashed up a bunch of something. And I did like a voice note. I sent it to her, and she's like, okay, this voice note, and I see it like this. And it's like, I don't know, just like have fun. I think that's something that's like lacking in the mother space, is like, you're still fun. You're mysterious and you're fun. Anyone who's ever worked with me knows that like my favorite thing ever is being mysterious. My husband has no idea even what this call is about. He has no idea that I've created the Mothership or what it is, where to find it. He doesn't, and that's okay. I like it. Like Jeana said, like I create in secret. I'm super mysterious about the things that I work on. They're for me, like they're my sources. And something interesting about this, like second child, second postpartum period, or fourth trimester, whatever the kosher way is to say all that, is like, I felt so much more like, I think I cried maybe 2 times, and I'm a Cancer. I think I cried like maybe 2 times this whole thing, because I was just like in something. Like I have 2 huge projects that I love that I created with my own, imagination and intuition, and beautiful partnerships that have been brought into my life. And I just stayed with it, like, because I wanted to. I really believed in them. I loved them. They were so fruitful to me. I wanted to share them with other people. Again, like the power of the 7, like you just want to like shower it on other people. And it made me feel fortified. Like I felt very fortified. Okay, I ate whatever I ate. I didn't have like, I didn't do all the things you're supposed to do to like fix your body afterwards and nourish yourself and blah, blah. I don't. I have a very modern life. I have a 5-year-old. If I had like not spoken to her for 40 days, I would have traumatized her. Like, I did things the way that, like, again, like you said, intuitively felt honest to my family and who I am as a mother, and my absolute unwavering trust in my ability to be a mother, and that's just how I think we did this project. Exactly the same way.
Yeah. I don't know why I just feel like I gotta tell you guys this, but I just keep seeing this image of like this like circling of spirits, and Amy, yours is like very golden, like marigold, and then Jeana, it's just very emerald, and I keep seeing it's and like almost like hearing the laugh of like little girls, but not like a creepy one from like but just very playful, and I see it's just this spinning energy, and yeah, my whole body, it's just kind of like this life force of the I feel like this is something, like I said, just in the same way of having children, that it's like a gift that's going to continue to give you guys something, because it's this sense of like, of the chase of each other's ideas, and in that energy of sleepovers and staying up late and underneath the covers, and what if we did this, and like, ooh, what if we did that, and this sense of that both of you are sevens, but the way in which that you express it and come at it, and I think those complementary things of being able to not edit, but like curate each thing, as though because you guys were, it's very rare we sculpt with someone else, right? And so where it was like, okay, Jeana, you lead, and then sculpting, and then Amy would come in and go, ooh, okay, see what you did there, and like truly a lot of like yes, and with then also having all of these other people coming to your sculpture and being like, ooh, I see this, and I want to leave this, and I want to leave this, and anyway, I just kept seeing that, and I was like, I think I should say that out loud, but that is
that
just
feels
what
really true.
Yeah, just kind of.
I want to just give a shout out to my brother, because I would basically be like, my brother Casey Sullivan, he came to my house, and I was like, can you please help me with it? He's a sound engineer, music producer, and he just moved back to Massachusetts from Los Angeles. And I was like, could you help me with this project I'm working on? And it's with my friend Amy. And we had like a little call with him, and Amy and I were just like, our audio was off. The kids were running around crying around. Do you remember? And
totally.
And Casey's like, okay, I'm going to come up to Vermont for the weekend. And I'm thinking he's just going to like have his laptop. And he brought like 2 screens, speakers, microphone. And I had all these voice memos from a lot of women that had already sent in their projects. And I could just, he's like, this is like, he was so funny. He's like, this is like if you want to learn how to clean audio, like I could teach a class right now, because there's just like some of the craziest. He's like, where was this person? Were they in a bathroom that was in the middle of a hallway? And then did they put themselves into a television from like 1985? Like, and it was just like, and he managed to just like level it all out and add texture to the audio where it feels like a fly on the wall. And I think that comes through. You do. And I hope this also comes through, is like, these women are like finding time, and they're in the middle of their day. Most of them have children where it's like, oh, okay, the baby's napping. I'm going to record this flow right now and do a movement. And they're doing it off the cuff. A lot of them are like not familiar with recording themselves. So you definitely capture that authenticity, and that like the presence that we always go back to as mothers, is like being present even in like recording spaces. But he was just, it was fun. Like I felt working with him, and I was like, hey, like, is there anything, can I do anything? He's like, just buy a gift for my nephew. And it was from me, and it was really sweet. And he was like, I just want you to feel supported. Like, this is my way.
That's what I was going to say when he said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was something that like, I don't expect of my siblings or like my parents to be like, oh, this is how you support me, is like producing the Mothership. Like, but it was something that that's what like got him in the car, and 3-hour drive with all of his equipment set up, and sitting and being like, hey, I want to do this like weird, like, I don't know if you're listening to this, please listen to Amy Keller's How to Become Invincible in 6 Months. But there's this moment where she says, smile at strangers, and it's like like the heaven. And I was like, I wanted to do that. And then like go zoom. And like, he was just like, okay, blah, 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 blah. And then did it. And we were sending Amy the MP3s in her text messages. I think it was like on a Saturday, and she's with her family. And so like, she's kind of trickling in throughout the day being like, this sounds like you're having so much fun.
Yeah, I did.
Through.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah. Yeah. So shout out to my brother.
Shout out to Casey, the man behind the women.
Yeah.
Casey Sullivan, standing on 2 feet, supporting just mothers at large. What like big shoes. Well, I'm just so grateful to you both for your time, not only putting that entire project together. And it sounds like a volume 2 may or may not be in the womb in its way to us.
Yep.
So I just for folks listening, again, I've even posted about it a handful of times on my socials and things like that. So we will put all of the places for all of this stuff to be found and all of the other work that you both bring into the world in the show notes on YouTube and all of the places that this will live. And so I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to have the conversation. And I just was so like, again, it the thing I loved so much, both in the art and in the construction of all of it, just felt in the women who lent their voices was, yeah, just that raw, like reality where I was like, oh, it feels very like Mom, but punk rock was just the way that, but it felt punk rock, but you can join if you want. Like there was something that was still, with like the lavender. And so just that the barrier to entry felt welcoming. And I think that that's something that, going back to the very beginning of this as we wrap it up, which is, where are these spaces where women can commune? Where are these spaces that we can all come together? And I think even on a bigger note, obviously I don't want to take away from that this was made for mothers. I think that is important to isolate that, but also even in that bigger, which is, what are you creating and what are you wanting to nurture? And that idea of woman, and what is it that you're wanting to hold space for? And I think that, or even for women who are maybe like, I don't know if I can do both, if I, and having all of these voices and knowledge and information to be able to listen to and hopefully draw some sort of conclusion for themselves, or just insight about something, is such a beautiful gift. So thank you both so very much. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with? No pressure.
This always happens. I was like, let me just say that one thing.
I mean, we did it. I feel like we left it all on the floor, but just before we went out, I wanted to make sure that I gave you the opportunity. If there was anything else that you were like, this thing.
This is the one thing, because I have this woman who, she is not a mother, and we are just like friends. We're like pen pals, and she's listening to the Mothership, and she's like, I just want to let you know, she's so great, because she'll literally just like send me her feedback on each episode. It's always so positive too. But she's like, this is like really inspiring me to create something. And I've been wanting to start like a Substack sort of thing where I'm like, where it's like sort of cultural critiques, and she's like, it's just reading what you and Amy have, all the different newsletters and posts that you've done that accompany the audio, and then seeing like how it's rolled out has inspired her to create. And she's also like, this, I know I'm not a mom, and like, I don't know if she plans on being one, but it's like, it's inspired her to sort of look within herself and like plant those seeds and bring things to reality and make it work. So I don't know. I think that's really cool. So I feel like it's definitely for mothers, like future and present, but I think it's for anybody,
Yeah. I feel like any frequency of creation is so needed right now on the planet. Like if there was some sort of salve that I could just like smear all over all of us, and we would just bloom out beautiful lotus flowers, it would be the force of creation, creating art, creating things, something every single day. It's so medicinal to the spirit, but it's also, like Jeana said, it sends like a giant flare up to everybody else. Like, there's cool shit going on right now. Like, people are up to cool stuff. The world is not going to explode, like, we're here for a bit longer, I'm sure. So you may as well make some cool stuff and like have cool conversations, be with other people, because the force of creating things is more than just what you create, right? The force of creation, it fills spaces with a different vibration, which creates fertility. It creates health and vitality. Like, when you're tapped into creation, you're tapped back into yourself, right? And it like is a light that turns on, and everyone's like, oh, hey, wait, something's up with that chick over there, you know, or that guy over there, like whatever it is. So it's like it just create. It is so medicinal to not only you, your family, and the people around you, but to the entire planet, to just send out a vibration of creation.
I love that.
Well said. I love it. Friends, you heard it here first. Thank you both so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much, Rachel. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Awesome.